from executive session, and I'll turn it over to our city attorney, Kathleen Kelly, to report on our executive session.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, as noted on the meeting agenda, the executive session was for the purpose of considering water rights, acquisitions, and dispositions. And in that regard, the Council did consider water rights, acquisitions, and dispositions. As follow-up to the executive session, the next agenda item is a draft ordinance for City Council's consideration on first reading that would approve an agreement to sell water rights currently held by the city. The city clerk has posted to the city's website a copy of the proposed ordinance and the agreement. With regard to the proposed acquisition of water rights by the city, a draft agreement and resolution will be on the agenda for the City Council's consideration at the next regular meeting to be held on March 2nd, 2021.
Thank you. So with that, we'll come back to regular business items. And so that was the city attorney's report on the executive session. And so City Attorney Kelly, do I need to introduce the first reading then? That's right, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mayor.
All right, so we will have first reading, and just so everyone remembers our process, typically on first reading, we don't take public comment, but if there is a member of the public that can't make it to the second hearing and they're here tonight, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll recognize you. But the purpose of the first reading is for us to set a public hearing so that the public can come and comment on an ordinance before council. So tonight we're going to have ordinance number 1804 series 2021, an ordinance approving the transfer of city-owned water rights in the new Coal Ridge Ditch Company and approving an agreement in connection there within our first reading so that we can set the public hearing on 3/2/2021. So is there a motion to approve the first reading and set the public hearing for the 2nd of March 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any members of the public that won't be able to come on the next hearing? All right, seeing none, could we please have a roll call on the motion?
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Yes.
Councilmember Lipton? Yes, said a yes. Councilmember Lipton? You can just give me a thumbs up.
We're having trouble hearing you, Councilmember Lipton. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
Mayor Stolzman?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. That takes us to our city's attorney's report this evening.
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to council comments, committee reports, and identification of future agenda items. Economic Vitality Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We have our meeting this Friday. Should be a good one from our conversation today and some things we've added on there. So invite any of you to join us on Friday if you'd like, but should be a good meeting.
Thank you. Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting yesterday. Just a couple of things to note. I suggest you take a look at our packet. The sales tax information is through the end of December. So that will be pretty close. There could still be some adjustments there, but the numbers are better than was anticipated in the last estimate, and that is a good thing. The other thing to take a look at is the preliminary financial statements for the quarter ended December 31st, 2020. We're working on a format there that is something that can be a working document in the Finance Committee. It might actually end up being a document or version that we'll use. But if you look at that, we also came out pretty good in the financial statements, mostly because of all the adjustments that we and staff made on the expenditure side of the budget in reaction to the hit we took in the revenues for 2020. So thank you. And just to let you know, in March, we're going to start talking about the bag tax implementation. And so that'll be the first meeting where we'll start working on that. Looking forward to implementation in January 1st of 2022. Thank you, Mayor.
Utility Committee.
Utility Committee met last week and we had a fairly lengthy meeting. Among the things we talked about was Windy Gap. Unfortunately for us, there's been an appeal to the court's ruling approving Windy Gap moving forward. So we're waiting to hear what the court might do with that appeal and how it affects the project. Obviously, the project will be pushed back, and because of that, our commitment for financing will likely also be pushed back. So that could be pushed back as much as 9 months to a year. So that is something we're going to continue to monitor. I know staff is working hard on it too, but it's also out of our control. We also had a long conversation about utility rates and financing and tap fees, and and staff did a new version of our basically our revenues and anticipated expenses, and it appears like we are going to have more fund balance money to be able to allocate for various things, including perhaps buying down rates or adding to or changing the CIP. Part of that was the change in policy that changed the working capital requirements and reserve requirements for the various utilities, as well as the surplus of revenue that we derived last year as a result of additional consumption as a result of the drought. So there's a number of things in play, and staff will be coming back to us with trying to put all that back together. So when we decide on rates for the next season, that we'll have something that's a little bit more refined. We also had a first look at a drought plan that we might need to consider moving forward, given the concerns about drought. Obviously, in the last 2 weeks, some of that concern has perhaps changed, but we fundamentally still have issues related to drought and need to have a plan in place in order to be able to respond to changing conditions. So those were the highlights of the meeting. We got a lot of work to do. I think we're going to be meeting sometime next week, and then having probably monthly meetings for a while until we get some of this backlog cleared out.
Thank you for the update. That takes us to Colorado Communities for Climate Action.
Yes, thank you. We did meet last week, and we're actually going to be testifying on Thursday morning at the Air Quality Control Commission. It's generally raising issues regarding the greenhouse gas roadmap for the state. The state's plan to figure out an economy-wide approach to reducing carbon pollution, and the greenhouse gas transportation budgets for the metro region. So we're going forward. It's going to be a very busy session regarding climate issues.
That's great news. Thanks, Councilmember Fahey. Commuting Solutions. No report on commuting solutions.
I'm sorry, no report, sorry.
Thank you. Consortium of Cities. Councilmember Brown, Consortium of Cities. Is that you?
Sorry, yes, that's me. Thank you. No report tonight, thank you.
Okay. Downtown Business Association Street Fair.
No report.
Thank you. Sorry, I just turned to the wrong page of my agenda. Denver Regional Council of Governments. So we're also talking a lot about the transportation emissions budgets and advocating the position that if we're going to have these greenhouse gas emissions budgets and we're going to get serious about transportation emissions reduction, that we need to see funding follow that. So we can't spend money on projects and not measure the impact to emissions and then expect metropolitan planning organizations and areas to meet these greenhouse gas emissions budgets. So that's what we're working on, trying to make sure that we can meet the goals in the governor's plan. And they're pretty aggressive, starting in 2025 and then 2030 and then 2050. Like each year has some pretty specific requirements of what you have to meet. And so we're trying to ensure that Yep, it's not just about giving people a budget and telling them to meet it. We've seen that with ozone, where we have an ozone budget and we just fail to meet it each year. So we've been in non-compliance with our ozone budget since 2012 or something like that. So we need actual funding to flow to transportation so that we can address the issues and target projects that'll reduce emissions. So that's what we're working on there. Joint Issues Committee between Superior and Lafayette.
No report this evening.
Okay, Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. I don't know if I gave you all the update. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Metro Mayors Caucus. So first, Mayors and Commissioners Coalition has been monitoring a number of RTD related issues. We got that great FaceTime with Lynn and Eric here at Council, but they, of course, also put on their agenda the Northwest Rail discussion last week. So I think many of us tuned into that. It was entertaining, if nothing else. And we'll see where things go from there. But we have some great directors representing us. So that's the good news. Metro Mayors Caucus. So we have been meeting on a number of issues, and the caucus has agreed to look at Front Range passenger rail as a topic. So that's good news for us as well. And down south, it was really important to them that the caucus look at Space Force. Because of course Centennial with Buckley there was vying for a position with Space Force, and just Space Force as it would influence the state is important to a number of the member jurisdictions in southern Denver. And so we've sent a letter supporting the Space Police. So we'll see where that goes.
The Space Police?
The Space Force.
Okay.
So we've sent a letter of support and asked to continue to look at that. Revitalization Commission.
I think there are businesses in Louisville that are working on Space Force stuff, are they not?
That's great. Councilmember Lipp?
Yeah, so Revitalization Commission, I think obviously heard one thing that happened tonight. We'll sort of see where that goes. But the other thing that came up at the last meeting was a little bit of a concern for me. There was some discussion by Revitalization that, in consideration of this grant program, they kicked in money for the LRC, that, it would be good to go out and talk to businesses about how it went and so forth, and maybe start picking businesses and going and visiting them and things like that. I, as wearing all of the various hats that I wear, suggested that maybe the EDC present to the LRC about the efforts that have been underway for a long time with businesses both within the URA and outside it, but and we're gonna hopefully do that. We're gonna talk about that at the EDC meeting, I think on Friday. But it seemed to me that there was a potential for a lot of crosstalk that might not necessarily serve council, the EDC, the LRC, or the business community very well. So maybe a little bit more coordination. And I kind of emphasized that pretty strongly, that this is a really good opportunity, I think, for there to be good cross-pollination, but a need for coordination. So anyway, I just bring that to your attention because it was a lively discussion, and some, we have some new people on the LRC, including me, but people who haven't had a lot of knowledge about how things are working on this. And so I think there'll be some good discussion that we can have. I was very happy that I was there. Megan, the director, did a great job, but it's always nice to have somebody who's on the council. I think they're talking about that stuff too. So.
Excellent. Excel Energy Futures.
No report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any topics for the advanced agenda? Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a topic for the advanced agenda, but I was confused earlier. I couldn't remember when the last time we met in the consortium of cities was relative to our meetings, so I apologize for that. So the report from our last February 3rd consortium of cities meetings is that we heard a report from Congressman Negus's office about some of the federal priorities that he has. He talked specifically, or the representatives from his office talked specifically about the wildfire summit that his office is helping to coordinate coming up here. And then we also talked about some of the after that we talked about some of the opportunities for us all to work together. That group has some new members on it, and Commissioner Loachman, who has taken over for Deb Gardner on the county commission, who's now leading it. So we're all we will be working through a number of issues, including sort of disaster preparedness, housing, and economic vitality, and how we can all work together over the coming months. So that's kind of the plan. Sorry. So thank you for my out of order response there.
Thank you. Councilmember Lay.
Yeah, I just had one other thing. As you all probably know, the request for applications to be on the DEI task force or EDI task force have gone out. We are going to take some steps, I think, to affirmatively reach out to a variety of organizations. But if you know somebody who fits one of the categories of people that we're really trying to get, particularly if you know folks who are not in Louisville, who we might want to try to help encourage, but also people in Louisville, or if you have suggestions or whatnot, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Councilmember Brown or me, because I think the close of that, and City Manager Balzer will correct me if I'm wrong, is like March 10th, is that right?
Yes, March 10th is correct.
So any thoughts that you have, and you know, if it's just a thought of, gee, you should contact this person, go ahead and tell us, and we can do that too. But we really want to try to make that a very vital, strong effort. So I don't know whether, I didn't talk to Councilman Brown before we did this, but if there's something else that he wants to add about that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Any other council comments, committee reports, or identification of future agenda items? Any questions about the advanced agenda? Councilmember Lay, I know you were looking for one. Did you get a copy of that? Great. All right. Well, without any other discussion, we will adjourn for the evening. I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank
Can I-
you.